American Pickers star Frank Fritz has died. His longtime co-star and friend Mike Wolfe confirmed his death on Instagram. No cause of death details for now, but Mike said he was with Frank when he died on Monday at 60 years old.
We all remember tuning in to American Pickers for the thrill of the hunt, the dusty barns, and those unbelievable hidden treasures pulled out of forgotten corners of America. But it was the people behind the picks who truly made the show unforgettable, turning every stop into a story we couldn't look away from. Over the years, the world around the series has quietly changed, and some familiar names tied to its journey are no longer here with us. Which of these faces have we lost along the way? And do you know the stories behind their final chapters? Join us as we go behind the scenes to remember the figures who helped shape American Pickers. Frank Fritz. When you talk about the heart and soul of American Pickers, you have to start with Frank Fritz. For more than a decade, Frank wasn't just a picker. He was the steady presence that gave the show its balance. With his easy humor, sharp eye for overlooked treasures, and deep knowledge of antiques, he became someone viewers felt they understood. Born and raised in Davenport, Iowa, Frank Fritz didn't discover picking on television. It had been part of his life for years. As a kid, he collected rocks and old cans, later turning his attention to motorcycles, toys, and anything with a story behind it. By the time cameras arrived, he had already built a life around the things others ignored. When the show took off, Frank didn't change for it. The show simply revealed who he had always been. But his journey wasn't as simple as it looked on screen, and some of the struggles he faced were far heavier than fans realized. Behind the scenes, the life of a picker is demanding in ways that rarely make it to television. Long drives, endless negotiations, and physical strain were part of the routine, year after year. Alongside Mike Wolfe, Frank traveled tens of thousands of miles searching for what they called rusty gold. While the show brought recognition, it also brought pressure, the need to keep finding bigger, better discoveries while maintaining the chemistry that made the series work. At the same time, Frank was quietly dealing with Crohn's disease, a condition he had managed for decades, along with worsening back problems that made the work increasingly painful. Things changed in 2021 when Frank stepped away from the show to focus on his health. His exit wasn't smooth, and the distance between him and Mike became public. He spoke openly about feeling overlooked and disconnected, revealing a friendship strained by time, illness, and the realities of television. Then, in 2022, everything shifted again when Frank suffered a severe stroke. It left the right side of his body weakened, forcing him into a long and difficult recovery. The man who once moved easily through barns and backyards now faced limitations he had never known before. But even then, the story didn't end in conflict. In 2023, Frank and Mike finally reunited in an emotional meeting that brought closure to years of silence. They reflected on their past, their early days, and everything they had built together. It was a moment that reminded them both of where they started. Unfortunately, Frank Fritz passed away on September 30th, 2024, in Davenport at the age of 60. The cause was complications from a stroke, linked to underlying health issues. In the end, he wasn't just remembered as a television personality, but as a man who stayed true to himself. While Frank's story was tragic, what comes next is even more shocking. Stay with us. Bob Peterson. Another person you simply can't overlook when discussing those who quietly shaped American Pickers is Bob Peterson. He wasn't a regular face, and he didn't appear in hundreds of episodes. In fact, he showed up just 5 times, but his impact went far beyond screen time. To Mike Wolfe, Bob wasn't just a guest, he was a mentor. When Bob passed away, Mike didn't write a standard tribute. He wrote something personal, describing him as someone who helped guide not only mechanical skills, but the way to live life. The word he used was "we," making it clear that Bob's influence reached deeper than viewers ever saw. Bob Peterson was born on April 17, 1938, in Davenport, Iowa, and he spent his entire life there. Long before television, he had already built a reputation as someone who understood machines and the stories behind them. When he appeared on the show, in episodes like Frank's Big Day and Mr. Whizzer, audiences immediately noticed something different. He carried himself with a mix of wisdom, humor, and authenticity that felt rare. Mike described him as someone who truly loved life and embraced each day with passion, always ready to help and always speaking with conviction. He represented a kind of spirit that people often feel belongs to another time. But his story didn't revolve around fame or television. Even during his appearances, Bob remained exactly who he had always been. He wasn't performing for the camera. The camera simply captured him as he was. That's part of why people connected with him so quickly. He reminded viewers that the show was never just about objects. It was about the people behind them, the lives lived around those items, and the history they carried. Bob Peterson passed away on September 27, 2022, at his home in Davenport. He was 84 years old. The cause of his death was never publicly shared. Mike announced the news on Instagram, sharing clips from Bob's time on the show and encouraging people to remember him through those moments. Fans responded by recalling his episodes and the impression he left, even with limited appearances. As of today, Bob Peterson's legacy isn't measured by how often he appeared, but by how deeply he was felt. His relationship with Mike existed long before the cameras and continued beyond them. As Mike said, his life and many others were better because Bob was in it. Ronald Heist.
Then see how I braced the poles back? I run 2-inch pipe back to a tree. So ground pushes a wall, it pushes a pole tight, and that's what holds the wall up.
Okay, so it's all about pressure and angles.
Yeah.
Another surprising loss from American Pickers has to do with one of its most unforgettable visitors, a man known to fans as Ronald Heist. His appearance was brief, but the world he created left a lasting impression. When Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz arrived at his property in Butler, Pennsylvania, they weren't just walking into a cluttered yard, they were stepping into something far more complex. Heist had spent over 50 years building an 80-room structure in his parents' backyard using only salvaged materials. No nails, no mortar, no traditional construction methods. Everything was carefully interlocked, balanced, and held together by design alone. Even more surprising, he transported much of it himself, often using nothing more than a motorcycle. It sounds impossible, but it was real, and standing right in front of them. The reason this unusual structure worked so well comes down to Heist's unique way of thinking. He didn't approach building like a contractor, he approached it like a puzzle. Every object had a place. Every piece had a purpose, even if it wasn't obvious to anyone else. What looked like chaos to outsiders was actually a system he understood completely. Wolfe summed it up simply on camera, calling him a really cool dude. But that barely scratches the surface. Heist wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just living the way that made sense to him, turning discarded items into something functional and deeply personal. But there was more to him than just the structure. Heist was deeply connected to music, especially oldies, and was known for calling radio stations and identifying songs within seconds. That detail reveals something important about him. His mind was always working, always recognizing patterns, whether in sound or in structure. In 2017, the documentary Mole Man gave a deeper look into his world, showing that his creation wasn't random. It was intentional, built piece by piece over decades. Ronald Heist passed away on March 7, 2023, at the age of 72, reportedly in his sleep. His obituary reflected his personality, humorous and unconventional, even describing his birth as being hatched. It captured the same spirit people saw on screen, someone both brilliant and childlike in the way he approached life. Ronald's life is a reminder of what made American Pickers special. The show didn't just uncover objects, it uncovered people like Heist, individuals who lived entirely on their own terms. And while his story feels almost unbelievable, it will surprise you to know that he wasn't the only one to leave in such a manner.
That's nice.
Actually, you know, if you took something and cleaned that gook off, it might be a little more.
That's just tar on there. Yeah, this side could be minto mint.
About $1.25.
A.J. Morunis. Now, speaking of those whose life stood as a reminder of how deeply personal passion can shape a person's world, another person who experienced a similar fate was Algis Morunis. Like Heist, Al wasn't just memorable because of what he owned, but because of how fully he lived through his passion. Known to fans as Stuntman Al, he brought a completely different kind of energy to American Pickers. Where some collectors quietly presented their items, Al turned every appearance into a story, connecting objects to moments in history and to his own experiences in a way that made them unforgettable. What made Al stand out was his personality as much as his collection. His nickname wasn't just for show, it reflected a background filled with action, risk, and adventure. That same spirit carried into his picking style. He didn't just look for value, he looked for meaning. Fans were drawn to his enthusiasm, the way he could take something ordinary and give it a sense of importance through storytelling. Much like Heist's carefully constructed world, Al's collection was a reflection of how he saw life, layered, detailed, and driven by curiosity. But just as Heist's story ended quietly, Al's took a tragic turn that few could have expected. In 2017, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer, a devastating blow for someone whose life depended on sharp thinking and physical energy. The diagnosis shook the picking community, not just because of who he was on screen, but because of the genuine connection he had built with people off it. The reason his story continues to resonate comes down to how he faced that battle. Even as his condition worsened, Al remained engaged with fans and fellow collectors, continuing to share advice and stay connected to the world he loved. He didn't retreat from it. Instead, he held on to the same passion that had defined him from the start. A.J. Morunis ultimately passed away from the illness, leaving behind more than just memories of his appearances. Like Ronald Heist, he showed that the true legacy of a picker isn't in what they collect, but in the spirit they leave behind. Gene Warren Family. Another unforgettable story from American Pickers centers on Gene Warren Sr., a man whose work didn't just collect history, it helped create it. When Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz stepped into the Warren family collection, they weren't just picking through antiques, they were walking through pieces of Hollywood itself. Props, models, and handcrafted effects filled the space, each tied to films that had shaped generations of audiences. What made Gene Warren Sr. so remarkable was his role as a pioneer in practical effects. Long before digital technology took over the industry, he was building illusions by hand, turning imagination into something tangible. As the co-founder of Fantasy II Film Effects, Warren worked on major productions and earned an Academy Award for his contributions to visual effects. His work proved that creativity and craftsmanship could bring even the most impossible ideas to life. The items seen on the show weren't just collectibles, they were fragments of cinematic history, each one carrying the mark of his ingenuity. But behind that legacy was a life that ended too soon. Gene Warren Sr. passed away in 1997 after a battle with cancer, leaving behind not just a body of work, but a standard for practical effects that continues to influence filmmakers today. His legacy didn't disappear, it lived on through the pieces he created and the family who preserved them. That legacy extended through Gene Warren Jr., who carried forward his father's passion and knowledge. When the collection appeared on American Pickers, it offered viewers a rare glimpse into a side of film history most people never get to see, and one of the best friendships the movie ever saw. Sadly, Gene Warren Jr. also passed away in 2019, marking the end of a family deeply tied to the craft. It's a reminder that while some collectors preserve history, others build it from the ground up. And this is where the story gets really emotional. Don't go anywhere. Gordy Pier. Meet one of the most unforgettable personalities to ever appear on American Pickers, Gordy Pier. You would remember him instantly, not just for what he owned, but for how he carried himself. A true cowboy in every sense, Gordy brought energy, humor, and authenticity the moment he stepped on screen. When Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz visited his Florida ranch, it felt less like a picking stop and more like stepping into a living piece of Western history. Gordy wasn't playing a role. He was showing the world his life. Gordy Pier was a former Marine, a stuntman, and a Western performer. He spent decades mastering skills that most people only see in movies. His bullwhip demonstrations weren't just for show. They were the result of years of practice and real experience. He had worked around the entertainment world during the era when Westerns dominated American television and film, and his stories reflected that time. Listening to him felt like opening a window into a different generation, one built on grit, performance, and storytelling. What made his episode stand out was that perfect mixture of showmanship and sincerity. He knew how to entertain, but nothing about him felt exaggerated. His property, his gear, and even the way he spoke all reflected a life fully lived. Fans connected with that immediately. He wasn't just another collector, he was the story. But like many of the remarkable people featured on the show, Gordy's journey eventually came to an end. He passed away on March 16, 2025, in Okeechobee, Florida, at the age of 92. For someone who had lived through so many eras, his passing felt like the closing of a chapter. Tributes poured in from viewers who had only just discovered him through the show, proving how lasting a single appearance can be. Gordy Pier didn't just leave behind memories, he left behind a spirit of adventure that defined everything he did. JP and his wife, Nora Dany. Now, one of the quieter but deeply meaningful figures connected to American Pickers is a man known as JP. He first came on the show in a 2017 episode where he appeared alongside his wife, Nora, offering a glimpse into a life built on creativity, craftsmanship, and genuine passion for collecting. Their segment didn't rely on spectacle. Instead, it stood out because of the warmth they brought to the screen and the care they had poured into everything around them. What made JP's story different was the connection that continued long after filming ended. Mike Wolfe and Danielle Colby stayed in touch with the couple over the years, something that doesn't happen with every featured guest. That ongoing relationship spoke volumes about the kind of impression JP and Nora left behind. They weren't just part of an episode, they became part of the extended family that the show has built over time. In early 2025, Mike shared the news that JP had passed away. It wasn't just an announcement, it was a personal loss felt by those who had known him beyond the camera. His life was remembered not only for what he collected, but for the way he lived, with intention, creativity, and a clear appreciation for the stories behind each piece. A later episode, filmed with Nora, became a quiet tribute to JP. Through her, viewers were able to see the lasting impact he had, not just on a collection, but on a life shared. It added an emotional layer to the show, reminding audiences that these moments don't end when the cameras stop. JP's story reflects something essential about American pickers. It's not just about what's found, it's about the people behind it, and the connections that continue long after. And that's not all. David Ort. Up next is David Ort. You would remember him for his connection to the picking world and his appearances alongside familiar faces from American Pickers, where his passion for motorcycles and mechanical pieces made him stand out. He wasn't the loudest personality on screen, but he had that quiet, authentic presence that fit naturally into the show's world. Like many of the people featured, he represented the everyday collectors who live and breathe this lifestyle without needing the spotlight. But then, out of the blue in 2021, fans started asking a simple question: what happened to David? Unlike some others connected to the show, there wasn't a clear update or public statement about his whereabouts. That silence created a wave of curiosity online. Discussions began to pop up across forums and comment sections, with viewers trying to piece together any recent information about him. And as often happens when there's a lack of answers, speculation follows. Some rumors even went as far as claiming that David Ort had passed away. Those claims spread quickly, despite there being no verified information to support them. It became one of those situations where uncertainty filled the gap left by silence, and assumptions started to take on a life of their own. But as of today, there is no confirmed evidence that David Ort has died. As a matter of fact, in September 2024, David Ort even auctioned off a massive portion of his personal lifetime collection, over 1,000 lots, through Matthew Bullock Auctioneers, proving he's still very much engaged with the hobby he loves. So, what seems far more likely to have happened in 2021 was that he simply stepped away from public attention, choosing a more private life away from television and online discussions. And that, in many ways, wouldn't be unusual. A lot of the people featured on the show were never chasing fame to begin with. His story highlights something different from the others. Not every disappearance is tied to tragedy. Sometimes it's just distance from the spotlight. And that takes us to those who appeared on the show and are still out there, but their departure was indeed tragic. Stay tuned.
Back to childhood, going through your grandmother, grandfather's closet.
Danielle Colby. Danielle Colby has always been one of the most recognizable faces of American pickers, known for her bold personality, sharp instincts, and deep connection to the world of antiques. But behind that strength, she has been facing serious health challenges that many fans didn't fully see. Danielle has been open about her long battle with endometriosis and uterine fibroids, conditions that caused intense and often debilitating pain over the years. In 2022, Colby made the difficult decision to undergo a hysterectomy, a major surgery aimed at finally addressing the ongoing issues that had affected her quality of life for so long. But that wasn't the end of her struggles. In late 2024, Danielle shocked fans when she canceled several of her burlesque performances due to what she described as a mystery illness. At one point, she revealed that she was in very bad health, even calling one particular performance night extremely painful and frightening. Despite that, she continued to push forward, sharing updates about her recovery and refusing to let these setbacks define her. On top of her own health battles, she has also dealt with serious medical concerns affecting members of her family, adding an emotional weight that goes far beyond the physical. Through it all, Danielle has remained open, using her platform to speak about chronic pain and women's health in a way that resonates with many. So as you can see, Danielle's absence from the show isn't random. It's tied to very real health struggles, and that's what makes it so difficult. It's not just about missing a familiar face, it's about understanding what she's been going through behind the scenes. And now, to the very person you won't believe should be on this list. Keep watching, because the next name might genuinely surprise you.
More or less challenging ourselves to find other things that people don't expect us to find. You know, we're transportation buyers, you know, motorcycles, cars, anything related to that. So now...
Mike Wolfe. Finally, we have Mike Wolfe, the driving force behind American Pickers, faced one of the most frightening moments of his life in September 2025. Known for his love of the road and constant travel, Mike's world was suddenly shaken when he and his girlfriend, Letitia Klein, were involved in a serious car accident in Tennessee. Their vehicle was struck by another car and completely totaled, turning an ordinary moment into something life-threatening in seconds. Mike suffered facial injuries and was rushed to the hospital, while Letitia endured even more severe trauma, including a broken jaw in 3 places, fractured ribs, a partially collapsed lung, and spinal bruising. It was the kind of accident that could have ended far worse. In the aftermath, Mike spoke openly about how the experience changed his perspective, forcing him to slow down and reflect during a difficult recovery period. The crash came during an already emotional time in his life, making it even more impactful. Thankfully, both have been on the road to recovery. Mike has since returned to picking, but with a renewed sense of gratitude, carrying with him a deeper appreciation for the life he continues to live every day. What do you think about these heartbreaking stories from American Pickers? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories about your favorite shows and the people behind them. Click on the next video showing on your screen. You won't want to miss it.